Have you ever found yourself sitting quietly in the afternoon, staring at your phone, hoping it might ring? Maybe you glance toward the window whenever a car pulls up, wondering if this time it might be your children or grandchildren coming to surprise you with a visit. But then, nothing. Just silence. A stillness that lingers a little too long. If this sounds familiar, please know, you're not alone. A lot of people don't talk about this part of growing older. We talk about retirement plans, hobbies, travel, and maybe the occasional ache or pain. But what we often keep to ourselves is that quiet ache in our hearts when family doesn't visit as often as we hope they would. It's not that they don't love us. Life just gets busy. Schedules fill up, kids grow, and before you know it, the time between visits stretches from days to weeks, then maybe months. But here's something I want to tell you, and I hope you'll really hear this. Your worth is not measured by how often people show up at your doorstep. You still have so much life, love, and wisdom to give. And just because family isn't around as much as you'd like, doesn't mean you have to feel forgotten, or worse, useless. In this video, we're going to talk about 5 healthy ways to cope when family doesn't visit often, and how to stay emotionally strong through it all. These are not just ideas. They're small, powerful actions that can shift your mindset, lift your spirits, and even open new doors you hadn't imagined before. So let's start by talking about something that's easy to lose track of when the house feels too quiet, your sense of routine. When we were younger, routine was often built around work, kids, and responsibilities. But now, with fewer demands, it's easy to wake up and not have a clear plan for the day. That lack of structure might feel like freedom at first, but over time, it can lead to a sense of emptiness. That's why creating a simple, intentional daily routine can be so powerful. And I'm not talking about something strict or boring. It can be as gentle as starting your morning with a walk while listening to your favorite music or a podcast. Maybe every Tuesday you treat yourself to your favorite tea or take a moment to write in a journal. Having these anchor points in your day gives your mind something to look forward to. It reminds you that your time still matters, and it helps you feel more in control. Let's move to something equally important: connecting with people outside of your immediate family. I know it's not always easy. Sometimes it feels like the world's gotten faster while we've slowed down. But you'd be surprised how many people out there are feeling the exact same way you are, wanting someone to talk to, laugh with, or simply sit beside in silence. You don't have to wait for someone to knock on your door. You can be the one to reach out, call an old friend, join a local community group, even a virtual one. Some senior centers have book clubs, cooking classes, or walking groups. If you're comfortable with technology, there are even online communities made just for people over 60. You might think, oh, it's too late to meet new people. But I'm here to tell you, it's not. Some of the most beautiful friendships and connections can bloom later in life, when we know who we are and what truly matters. And while we're on the topic of connection, here's a little secret that can completely change the way you feel when your family doesn't visit. Start creating something for yourself. It could be anything: a small garden, a photo scrapbook, a handwritten recipe collection for your grandchildren one day. Or maybe you want to learn how to paint or tell your story in a memoir. Creating gives you a sense of purpose, and purpose is the fuel of emotional strength. When you're focused on building something, whether it's a project, a goal, or even a legacy, you shift your focus away from what's missing and into what you're making. One woman I met started recording herself reading bedtime stories. She said she missed reading to her grandkids, so she made videos and sent them to them by email. Now her neighbors' kids are asking for recordings too. What started as a way to deal with loneliness became a gift she never expected to give. Now, before we move on, let me pause here and say this. It's okay to feel hurt. It's okay to miss your children and grandchildren. It's okay to cry when the house feels too quiet. There's no shame in feeling that way. But staying in that space too long, that's where we lose our light. So instead of waiting for others to come bring joy to your doorstep, you can start planting joy right where you are. We've talked about how creating a routine and building something meaningful can help bring back a sense of control and joy. But what happens on those days when even that feels too hard? You know the ones I mean, when the silence feels heavier than usual and the memories feel louder than the present moment. On days like those, one of the most healing things you can do is get out of the house and shift your environment. It doesn't have to be a grand adventure. It could be as simple as sitting in the sun at a park, walking through a nearby garden, or browsing your local library, even if you don't plan on checking out a book. Being around people, sounds, movement, it wakes up the spirit. Sometimes, when we stay inside too long, our thoughts loop around the same feelings. We start to imagine stories. They don't visit because they've forgotten me, or maybe I'm just not important anymore. But more often than not, those thoughts come from the ache of missing someone, not from truth. Changing your physical space can interrupt that loop. It reminds you that the world is still turning and that you're still part of it. A woman I once met told me she started taking the bus into town every Saturday just to sit at her favorite cafe. She didn't know anyone there, but over time, the barista learned her name. Then the other regulars did too. She told me, "It feels like I belong somewhere again." And sometimes, belonging isn't about people you've known your whole life. It's about finding new places where you're seen, even if just for a warm smile and a good morning. Another healthy way to cope, and this one's a bit harder, but incredibly freeing, is to let go of expectations and instead choose to give love freely. You see, sometimes we tie our happiness to what others do or don't do. We think, if they would just visit more, I'd feel better. And sure, that would help. But when we base our emotional well-being on someone else's actions, we give away our power. What if instead, you chose to love your family for who they are today, not who you wish they'd be? Maybe your children are overwhelmed with work. Maybe your grandkids are glued to their phones and forget to call. That doesn't mean they don't love you. It just means they're wrapped up in their own worlds. And while that might hurt, it's also a reminder that they're living the life you once lived. Busy, chaotic, distracted. You've already walked that road. Now you're in a season of reflection, wisdom, and stillness. They'll get here too, one day. But right now, you can choose to send them love without needing anything back. A simple text that says, "Thinking of you today," or a voice note sharing a happy memory from when they were little. No guilt, no expectations, just love. And here's the beautiful part. Sometimes, when you let go of needing something from others, they feel it. The pressure lifts, and suddenly, that space creates room for them to come closer, naturally, in their own time. Now, I want to talk about something many people your age are scared to admit out loud: feeling invisible. When you walk down the street and no one really sees you. When your opinions at the table get brushed aside. when your phone stays quiet for days. That feeling can eat away at your confidence. But here's a truth I want you to hold on to tightly. You are not invisible. You are simply underappreciated by people who may not yet realize your value. And rather than waiting for others to validate you, you can start validating yourself. How? By sharing your story, your real story. Think about everything you've seen, everything you've survived. You've lived through decades of change, heartbreak, love, loss, laughter, and lessons. There's a power in your voice that no one else on this planet has. And that voice deserves to be heard. So write it down, record it, share it. Not for fame, not for attention, but because your life matters. You matter. Your story is a light, and someone out there is walking through the same darkness you once did. Your story might be the lantern they need. There's a man named John I once spoke with. He was 78 when he decided to write a letter to his younger self. He ended up posting it on a community page online. That letter, full of regrets, wisdom, and quiet strength, went viral. Why? Because people are starving for realness. And older voices like yours, they carry a truth this world desperately needs. So if the world hasn't asked for your story yet, offer it anyway. The right people will listen. And when you speak from your heart, you don't just help others. You remind yourself that your life still has deep meaning. And finally, before we continue, I want you to take a deep breath and reflect on this. What makes you feel most alive today? Not yesterday. Not when the kids were little. Not when the house was full of noise. But today. Maybe it's the way your garden smells in the morning. Maybe it's a song that brings you to tears. Maybe it's the way your hands still remember how to knead dough without looking. That spark, that moment of aliveness, is the treasure. Chase more of it. Lean into it. Let it carry you forward, even on the loneliest of days. There's something powerful about recognizing the little things that still make you feel alive. That moment of quiet joy in the morning sun, the way your favorite song stirs a memory, or how your body still remembers the rhythm of a dance you haven't done in years. These are not small things. These are threads that tie you back to yourself, your real self, not just the version people used to need, or the one always surrounded by others. And that brings me to the last, but maybe most important, piece of all this. The relationship you have with yourself. You've spent much of your life caring for others, whether it was raising children, working hard to support your family, or being the dependable one everyone turned to. You've been someone's anchor for a long time. But now, in this quieter season of life, it's time to give some of that love and care back to the person who's been there through it all. You. One of the healthiest things you can do, especially when family isn't around much, is to become your own best companion. That doesn't mean you have to spend every moment alone. It means learning how to enjoy your own company, speak kindly to yourself, and treat your emotional needs as just as important as anyone else's. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, "I don't want to bother them," or "they're too busy for me"? That little voice might seem polite, but over time, it turns into self-neglect. You start shrinking yourself down, asking for less, needing less, and eventually feeling less seen. But your needs matter, and they don't have an expiration date. You are still worthy of attention, love, and care, even if the world forgets to show it sometimes. A great way to nurture this self-relationship is through gentle affirmations. Not the fluffy kind that don't feel true, but the grounded, powerful ones that remind you of what you've already lived through. Try this. Each morning, before you pick up your phone or turn on the TV, place your hand on your heart and say one kind, honest thing to yourself. Something like, "I've made it through hard things before. I'm strong." Or, "Even if today is quiet, I am still full of life." Speak to yourself the way you would speak to a dear friend who's feeling low. Because whether anyone else says it or not, you deserve kindness. And hearing it from yourself may be the most healing voice of all. You can also reconnect with that deep inner strength through creativity. And no, you don't need to be an artist. You just need to express, draw, paint, sing, journal, plant flowers, take photos, bake something beautiful, make something with your hands. Because creating something new reminds your spirit that you're not stuck in the past. You're still growing. I know someone in her 80s who started making little watercolor cards every Sunday. Not to sell, not for likes, just because it made her feel peaceful. She sends them to neighbors, sometimes leaves them in the mailboxes of strangers. She says it's her way of putting love into the world when she's not sure who needs it most. And in doing that, she's built a quiet circle of connection all around her. That's the beauty of creativity. It becomes a bridge. Now, if you're still watching this and thinking, "That all sounds nice, but I still just wish my kids would visit," let me say this. It's okay to feel that way. Longing for connection is natural. It's human. And nothing I say is meant to replace that deep desire to be loved by the people you raised, held, and sacrificed for. But what I hope you take from this is that your happiness doesn't have to be held hostage by someone else's schedule. Yes, their presence would bring comfort, but their absence doesn't have to define you. You are not forgotten. You are not unloved. You are simply entering a new chapter, and in this chapter, you get to be the main character again. So don't wait for the phone to ring to live. Don't wait for the knock at the door to smile. Don't wait for a holiday gathering to feel connected. Choose joy now. Choose healing now. Choose you every day. And before we end, I want to leave you with this. You are part of something bigger than just your family. You're part of a generation that built the world we live in today. You've shaped lives, planted seeds of wisdom, and weathered storms that many will never understand. Your worth doesn't disappear just because your house is quieter now. It deepens. If this video spoke to you in any way, if you found comfort, strength, or even just a small sense of, "I'm not alone," I'd love for you to share your thoughts in the comments below. You never know who else might read your words and feel less lonely because of them. And if you'd like more videos like this, ones that speak directly to your heart without judgment or fluff, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. You are part of a growing community of people just like you, wise, strong, and still full of life. Here's to finding peace in your own presence. Here's to learning to love this season of life, not in spite of the silence, but because you've learned how to fill it with meaning. You are not alone. You are deeply, powerfully, wonderfully alive. And this world is better because you're still in it.